in that department.
Sure.
I am not.
Maybe take on.
Living on Rockland or something, yeah.
Tennis.
No.
Although he does actually.
Tennis.
How are you? What did I do?
Yeah, we're
Alright.
It's been up for 15 minutes.
Going all right. He was up right
You guys
when I
ready?
left the house tonight. So.
No?
I am not.
Okay,
Go ahead,
good.
just kidding.
I said to him, I'm like, happy anniversary. Will you call my mother and father and thank them for the flowers? I'll talk to them tomorrow. Bye.
Hey, Rick, we put a bolo out on you.
I was just gonna send you a message and then
I get
Chad.
stuck in traffic. No,
Like Abington traffic
Set it
is
like
rough.
10:18.
no, it's on Route 18 in Weymouth. You ever try to get up there?
I try and avoid it.
I should have.
Only because back then I had to, add some sobriety to the meeting.
He can drive past and park wherever he wants like the old days.
No, I have blue lights.
He's actually parked at the door out there.
I actually am in the lobby.
And then she has up and help with everyone. Okay.
Go ahead and get started. You guys ready?
Ready.
All right, thanks.
We vote on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
What?
We vote on that? Motion
Sure.
to see if we're ready?
Time is 7:10 on February 19th, and we will meet for the Finance Committee meeting. New business is the Highway Department, Park and Recs, and the Water Department. Rick? I don't know what order you want to go in.
I would
Water
suggest
Department
the water
first.
because- That's,
Like you're thinking.
Go with who's here, that's the way I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's an executive seat or something. Good evening.
Good evening.
This should be nice and simple. I already sat down with Rick and Dory, and Rick said he was gonna handle it, so I'm just here to.
You learned the lesson there, didn't you?
All right, I'm gonna start with what I consider some bad news. I have to increase the budget I submitted by a total of, once I find my figure here, by a total of $29,045. And that is because I received an email from the Rockland accountant that the Plymouth County retirement is going up 24%, not 8%, which we were told to budget. So that changes my retirement figure, and it ups the budget by $29,045. So with that, I have done a little bit of changing my budgets around. This is all the latest stuff, but it's not really a big change. But all it is a bunch of paper. 2, 4, 6, yeah, I got enough. And as you know, I go through my joint budget first, because that in turn formulates my Abington budget, as we've done in the past. Did you guys get a copy?
No.
Thank you.
So the first page of what I just handed out, and a lot of it you probably already have in the KVS and the work that Sue's been doing. She's done quite a job on that. But this is the way I always do my budget. I put in what my 13 expenditures were, what my 14 appropriations are, and when this budget was formulated on November 15th, what I had spent to date. About, 40% through the year. And in my proposed budget for FY15, wages and salaries have a 1.44% increase. And that is basically, the next page has all my employees, all their breakdown. For the most part, it's a 2% increase that we're looking at. They're negotiating contracts right now, but I can't wait till after the fact, and then I have to put something in there. So I figured it on a 2%. There are a few employees that are getting more than that. One's getting a 16% increase, believe it or not, but he's going from a rookie mechanic to a grade 2 operator. He's taking the exam, he's passed both exams, he's getting promotions. So he's going up the ranks. So even though I have a 2% increase, my salary line item is only going up 1.44%. And that's due to the more we automate, the more we cut down on overtime. And we see a big difference in the manpower. My next item is the employee benefits. That is going up $85,000. And that basically is attributed to the Plymouth County retirement. That's the line that just went up $29,000 for the Abington share. Don't forget this 85 is a total share, to be split by Abington and Rockland. And that is, there's a breakdown on that on the third page, what my, the 888, and that's broken down into the licenses that they get bonuses for their licenses, uniform stipends. We have to go through the training. Plymouth County, as you can see, is up to 478, and health and dental is up around 372. So these are pretty much fixed numbers that I don't have any handle on. My electricity, I'm seeing a trend that I can actually down my electricity by $25,000. That's due to, we signed on with Patriot Energy, and we're getting some fixed rates, some flat rates. I can really project that. Down the bottom, consulting fees, that's anything we do in the plants, and when there's a lot of regulations coming down, such as right now, we are looking at Myazab, that we might have to change the treatment process over there because they have a new regulation that you cannot have your byproducts, disinfectant byproducts have to be controlled, and we have to change the system over at Myazab because that's groundwater, you get your disinfectant byproducts. I'm projecting, I proposed 15 for 2014, we're already gone through 13,000. I think 20 is a safe number, but the unfortunate part, when you go from 15 to 20, it turns into a 33% increase, but it is minimal in the entire budget. Workers' comp and insurance, those are things that are out of my hand. So basically, in my joint waterworks, my budget is, last year was for the town of Abington, was 1.59, this year it's 1.704. And the biggest difference is the shares have changed. As you know, every year I have to differentiate how much water Abington uses, how much Rockland uses. Last year it was 55-45. This year it's going up to 53, down for Rockland to 53-47 for the town of Abington. So it does turn in, from my joint waterworks only, it turns into a 7% increase for the town of Abington. And after the uniforms in Plymouth County, I have a couple pages that breaks down exactly where the money goes, what is, it's pretty straightforward. I'm not gonna, but you have that in writing in case you want to go over anything. Which does finally bring me into my Abington budget. And as you can see, the same scenario I used with the joint, I go through my 13, 14 expenditures to date and come up with my 15. The intermunicipal agreement, government, we just covered that whole thing. It is a $113,000 increase. The bond issues that I have out there, my maturing debt, is actually going down $3,500, which in turn, my entire Abington budget is going up to going up by 4.81%, and that is totally due to the joint portion of it, which is really heavy on the Plymouth County retirements, is what's really driving all of this. Likewise, the next couple of pages after that are.
Can I just ask, I'm sorry.
Of course you can.
Just, because I remember we had this question before. How does the retirement work? Because there's so many Abington employees, so many Rockland employees.
Everybody is employed by the Abington Rockland Joint Waterworks. Everybody. There are no Abington employees, there are no Rockland employees. Rockland handles our retirement plan and stuff like that, but.
We're still doing that, though, I think that,
Yes, yeah, everybody works for the Abington Rockland Joint Waterworks. The retirement comes, that's health insurance. Retirement is just basically tied into the Plymouth County Retirement. They're in Plymouth County Retirement. And I really don't know what the percentages are, but, well, they don't pay anything into the retirement.
Dan, if I could, on the same point, this is recent news you received from Rockland with regard to how they're going to assess the retirement to the organization. Did they provide you an analysis or breakdown of that? Or
No, all he did was send me an email. He sent it to myself and John Laughlin, who is the sewer superintendent in the town of Rockland. And we, out there on our own. And he basically, his email basically said Plymouth County retirement is increasing 24% next year. This is unusually high. We were told to expect an 8% increase, and that's what I budgeted everything on.
What's the increase again?
24%. This is unusually high, and I will assume it wasn't taken into consideration in your budget preparation. Please amend your budget at your earliest convenience. So that's where he got it from, I don't know, but he guides us on what we're doing.
And we can communicate with them to find out how they calculate that, and we can provide that to you too. So-
It's not so much calculations as far as, they go through my staff and stuff like that. But his notice is that Plymouth County is is increasing the contribution by 24% this year, which has always been in the works. I mean, they're talking about how they're going under and you have
But
to
they're
get
not-
it back.
The overall assessment increase is not 24%. So
Really?
Right, so somewhere in the calculation that they do, they've made some assessment that's not strictly based on, they must have their own internal formula that they provide. So, and we can
Yeah, we
ask
can
them
get
how
that.
they do
Yeah.
that. So, 'cause I know it kind of leaves you out there on the issue. So we'll see what we can find out, and we'll certainly report that to the finance committee.
I'd appreciate that myself, too.
Sean?
Yes, actually, this is kind of indirectly to you, Dan, but mostly through Rick. 2 years back, we had found out, unfortunately, that we were in arrears with regards to our retirement payments.
Yes.
What is the total outstanding balance as of now, and how much is actually still owed?
$134,000.
That's for previous year assessments,
Yes,
not including this year's.
that's correct.
payment.
There's an article I have in here submitting that, and this is the last year of the 5-year payback. It'll come off the books after this year.
Just a follow-up to that. So the system that we have in place today, or the corrective action, whatever the corrective action was, aside from the warrant articles that we see, I don't recall, this is my own institutional memory. I'm not certain how that happened, but what are we doing today to ensure as going forward that we're paying that assessment?
I am overseeing it as opposed to the Rockland accountant overseeing it. What happened when it originally took place was back in 2006 was the year that health insurance took a substantial increase. So I saw no difference in my budget. They dropped taking out the Plymouth County but put it into my health insurance, so I'm paying the same as I always paid. And it didn't really send up a red flag until 5 years later when he says, hey, because then my budget didn't change from year to year. Hey, you guys aren't paying Plymouth County. You didn't bill me for it. I mean, and that's how that happened, but we are coming out from under that rock.
Third question, that's the workers' comp question. Who provides the workers' comp insurance? I know the town of Abington actually gets its own. Looking at its current rating, you can see that they're doing fairly well managing workers' comp. So who provides the Abington Rockland Joint Waterworks?
That is provided by Feidelberg.
Do you happen to know what your ratings are, per chance?
I don't off the top of my head, but we used to be with Meyer also. And we went out, we bid it out, and it's coming in substantially on a lower.
Well, the silly question really comes down to is what is the name for which you folks secure it under? I'm looking at the Workers' Comp Rating Bureau information in front of us.
Yep.
And I'm just trying to see what your history has been. The reason why I asked the question, you said something that just stuck with me, which was it's out of your control. It's actually so much well within your control You know, obviously your costs are well within your control, workplace safety, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly,
That's why it just kind of struck a curious chord for me.
exactly. Workers' comp, we go out with Feidelberg every year on that, and it would be under the Abington Rockland Joint Waterworks.
Thank you.
Well, who's the underwriter? Is it, like, is it Travelers? Is
No.
Do you remember who? I'm just curious, more of a
Throw
curiosity.
some names at me, I'll,
I just did. Sean can throw some names at you.
AIG,
No,
as an example.
no.
RTW.
Is that something that you can follow up with?
I can follow up
with
on
the
that, but I didn't-
More
retirement
of a
fund?
curiosity than a, substantive issue.
Brian Murphy, I just met with him the other day. I know the company is Feidelberg, but they're not the underwriters.
What was the reason for that? Is that just the workman's comp insurance, the increase in that? Is that just typical?
That's a buffer. I'm putting a buffer in there. If it goes up, I got it covered. I'm sorry.
No, I want to add a disclaimer to it. So workers' comp is based on the quality and type of work that you do, and there are rating factors that go into it. So you have a mild
Accidents that
merit.
you have, right?
So it's the frequency of accidents and the severity of accidents. So the severity gives you a multiplier on top of a multiplier. So if you run in a remarkably safe shop, you can actually get a credit from your workers' comp. You still have to pay, it's statutory insurance you pay every year. But you can get a mod rating of less than 1, which means that you are so stellar and pristine. Most people average between 0.98 and 0.11. 1.1 rather. So when you look at that number, you say, geez, if it cost you $1 for insurance, multiply the dollar times 1.1, and then multiply that product by your adjustment factor, if you will, your ARAP. The reason why I was asking the question is, what is the history? If it's something that's controllable, workers' comp, like all insurances, are well within the control of whoever buys them,
Right.
except for flood, and you can argue that with your congressman.
I hate to be, I hate to jinx myself, but we're up there on every year, with no claims. We're very, very tight. I just don't want to jinx myself, that's all. So budget-wise, that's about it. There will be no rate increase to support this budget. The budget is going up approximately, as I said, $100,000. With the rate increase we put in place 2 years ago, we are realizing approximately $150,000 surplus this year that will be able to go into the reserve and then be voted back out for projects at a later date. So there will be no rate increase with this budget.
So there was some warrant articles behind it?
Yeah, I have warrant articles if you want to go through those. The first one is 50, I'm sorry,
Before we start, I just wanted to ask where we're at with that land in
those
Rockland.
those
When that
articles,
happened.
nothing ever happened, and those articles are probably going to be closed out.
And
Working with Leo on those.
do you know what they're doing back there?
He can't move the land, he can't do anything, he's just, he's floundering, he's waiting for us to, give him $10 million so that he can retire, and it's not gonna happen. As we said when we originally took out the article, was that we were looking for a grant for it, and if we got the grant, we would take it, but the grants never came through. And in order to apply for the grant, we had to have the funding saying that we were interested in it. Those articles were paper articles. And I still maintain that if we ever get that land, it's not gonna cost us anything. Okay, the articles I have, the first one is a $50,000 article with a like amount from the town of Rockland. When we moved, believe it or not, 4 years ago, we brought all of our old antiquated IT stuff with us. We've got 5 servers, we've got, all slaves. We're pretty vulnerable where we are right now. We've had companies come in, they've looked at them. We did just put in for a $125,000 grant that we did not get. And We thought we could sell it big time by saying that we could mine Rockland and Abington, 2 towns and all that, but I guess we didn't know the right people. We did not get the grant, but we can't keep letting this go behind us. Even our firewalls are dangerous. What we're looking to do is to start taking all of my billing software and all my, we use the SCADA systems, we run our plans through this and run them through the cloud, get them out off-site. Right now, God forbid if my building burned down, everything's going with it. We don't even have, any kind of backup. So we've priced this out and we're looking for $100,000 total, and it would be 50 from Rockland and 50 from Abington. And this would be transferred out of the undesignated. This is, I know we're all, as I just said a minute ago, it looks like I'm gonna have a $150,000 surplus this year. It's not surplus, it's receipts more than we spent. That automatically, I cannot spend that. That automatically goes into the undesignated, and then we do articles like this, and that's how it gets to be spent. It's still controlled by the people.
And so this is gonna be, is it for hardware, or is it for?
Both.
Okay.
It's for hardware, and it's also for replacing our billing system. We're looking at the Munis billing system. Right now, it's pretty tough, because we use Data National. It's a good product, but John uses it and I use it, and then we're tied in with the Rockland Sewer, they use it, and we're tied in with the Rockland Board of Health, they use it. But then we get into finances, Rockland uses Munis, Abington uses, is it
KVS.
KVS. So, we either get everybody to go KVS, and it's not gonna happen, we get everybody to go Munis, it's not gonna happen. And I'll be honest with you up front, I've already talked to John, and he's looking at John Stone. Rockland is already Munis, I'm looking at Munis, which John will go with me, John Laughlin will go with me, Rockland, so everybody will be Munis, and you guys will be KVS. So guess where the power play's going? But
So-
that's what that's for.
If it's cloud, there won't be new servers or anything, right?
No,
Okay.
no, what do they call them, virtual.
Okay.
The second article is another $50,000 article, and that is to continue my meter program. We have been upgrading the meters in town, it's been an ongoing program. It's been 3 years since I used an article on that. And the money that's in the article, we've spent them, we've got our meters in stock. Meters is a completely ongoing program. Meters are made to last 10 years, we put them in, and we're doing 1/10 of the town every year, so 10 years is up, you're ready to take those old ones out and put new ones in. That's a revolving program. The third article is $35,000 to replace a F-350, 2002 50. It's 12 years old now, it's seen its day, it's been pretty beat up. I hope to start this year, and I have a fleet of 3 pickups in each town that we can go out. I'm hoping to, and they're all, this is the oldest one, but the newest one is, I believe, 2003. No, I'm sorry, 2005. But I hope to start this year and replace a vehicle a year for the next 2 or 3 years, get the fleet back up to snuff. Do what we can afford.
Question on that.
Sure.
In my travels, I've seen one of the trucks out doing some snow plowing.
Yes,
Who does it plow for?
Abington,
For the town?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. That's Joe LaPointe does that. We put a plow on his pickup truck.
And that's just to supplement the highway? Is it
He
to work
works,
under highway
yep,
for that?
he works for the highway.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I actually have another question. Now, is this something that should be allocated instead towards capital or something of that nature? Just-
I was always under the impression that capital was $50,000 and 5-year life expectancy. I have no problem going to capital with it, if that's what the feeling is.
I think it is $50,000.
That's the discretion of the town, really, there's no hard and fast rules, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly, it's whatever there's no policy on that, usually it's a matter of practice, but, I've heard as low as 10,000 or 10-year life expectancy, it's just a matter of, I think, my understanding though is for the most part, vehicles and fleet replacement has been done as part of the capital plan. But I think a lot of that is less of the formality of it, but more because of the timing of the town has had to rely on free cash certifications. Obviously, the town doesn't have to do that for the water department, but it doesn't have to rely on free cash certification for the capital outlay plan. But I think it's probably a good point, though, for consistency. It would probably make sense to keep it all uniform.
Yeah, I don't have a problem, whatever way you want to go with that. It's easy.
This being been discussed, what is the balance of the undesignated water undesignated fund? Because I mentioned one of the sheets I was looking through and see if it probably is right in front of me.
My figure, whether it doesn't mean anything, but my figure is 451,000.
Just supplemental to that, if I may, Chair. The undesignated fund, that comes from usage, right? The unanticipated revenues or receipts, rather.
Right.
Okay. And that's from all years cumulative, is that correct? Right, so every year you just contribute to the undesignated fund, you have to ask us for permission to spend the money.
Yes, we do. Some years, before we put that rate increase in, the undesignated fund got used for offsetting the operating budget at one point. But we always try to add to that fund instead of taking anything out of it. We always like to. I don't like to have to spend more than I'm bringing in. And unfortunately, it does happen sometimes, but it's very rare.
Is, with these articles, just for kind of structure and mechanics, is this this is the undesignated water fund that is owned by the joint Abington, Rockland?
This is owned just by Abington.
Is it just by Abington's
Yes.
portion? Okay, so there's not an equal side from Rockland coming in for a $70,000 pickup truck, it's $35,000?
No. The only one that is split, well, there's two articles, and I did say the 50/50 on the IT, and it does say right in the article an equal amount from the town of Rockland. And I do have a final article after that would be split. The next article I have, after the pickup truck, the work truck, is, we
Wait,
talked.
I'm sorry,
go right
I
ahead.
just have to go back to that, because, so, the money comes out of the out of Abington's?
Yes.
Undesignated
Yes.
fund
Yes,
for the pickup truck?
yes.
And then, what about Rockland?
Rockland's buying one also. It's a
Okay.
whole article just like this for Rockland.
Same thing?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
a truck for Abington, a truck for
Yes.
Rockland?
Yes.
Okay. And they have a separate undesignated fund?
Yes. Basically, the way this whole thing works is, we have the Rockland Water Department and the Abington Water Department. Any revenue from the Abington water usage, Abington construction, systems development, conservation, any revenue that comes in from Abington stays with Abington and gets spent in Abington. The only place you do see a difference is like my operating budget for the joint, because, in a nutshell, the joint produces and sells the water to the town of Abington, or to the town of Rockland. And last year, Abington used 47% of the water that was sold. And Abington collected receipts on 47% of the water, so Abington owes 47% of the bill. Where
Then
Rockland,
how do you know what Abington's portion is that's going into the undesignated fund?
Receipts that are from here.
just from Abington. The joint waterworks does not have receipts.
Okay. So the receipts that come from Abington that are over and above?
Yes, what was spent in
what's
Abington.
anticipated
Yes,
Goes into the undesignated fund for Abington?
yes.
Likewise for Rockland?
Likewise, Rockland. And both funds, Rockland's got more customers. They have a bigger undesignated fund than Abington has. Everything is split according to your usage, except when you get into capital projects, such as the tanks we built and the treatment plant upgrades. That's owned 50/50 by each town and paid 50/50 by each town. All right, this is the article you had mentioned earlier. This is the final payment, $139,812.02 is the final payment. That would be for the FY10 reimbursement to the town of Rockland for the Plymouth County retirement and that'll close out that account. And my final and smallest article, $7,636.14 for retirement payback. Sozio Tanzi retired November 20th. It wasn't budgeted in this year's budget, and so we're going to ask to have that 7,000. And again, that goes back to Sozio retired in FY14. Abington's share in FY14 is 45%. So 45% of his retirement total is passed on to Abington, and 55 is passed on to Rockland. That's the sick time buyback.
I know this is a contractual requirement, but just in general, like with regard to capital, to the extent that there's a lot of the votes that are taken by Abington and Rockland are really contingent upon similar approval in both communities.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so,
I was going to ask that about the IT.
Yes,
If
yeah.
it's approved by one and not the other.
No, there you go jinxing me again. We've never had that happen, but it's all or nothing. It's all or
Matt's
nothing.
gonna be on the phone tonight.
You don't know anybody in Rockland, do you?
I had a couple of questions.
Sure.
Going back to the beginning, the salary and wages,
Mm-hmm.
the overtime number
Yep.
seems like awfully high. For looking the basis compared to the overtime. Is some of the guys just working around the clock on overtime?
No, but we do, unfortunately, because of staffing, we are running 24/7. And the second and third shifts are always one-man shifts. So anytime somebody's on vacation, anytime somebody calls in sick, that has to be filled with overtime. It's just the beast of the burden. We don't have a chance to do that. Likewise, unfortunately, there's water main breaks, and that's just the unexpected stuff.
One other question. Last year, I think it was last year when we talked, I had asked about cell phones, and you told me the commissioners all have cell phones. I heard this year that they have tablets now.
Yep.
What can they need tablets for?
Well, they actually do use the tablets as we do paperless meetings now. Everything we do, we send out emails, and they come in the tablet, and like all the paper you have here, they have it on the tablet in front of them.
Are you noticing a savings on paper and printing? It's the first board that I've heard, or commission that I've heard of. that have
Yeah,
it.
I can't say that it's a wash.
Do we know what the tablets cost?
The original tablets, I believe, were $800 a piece. But,
And how many were there?
well, there's 6 of them with the commissioners, but I wound up buying, I think, 15 of them, because we use them now in our vehicles with all the guys that go out to, anytime we're out on the street, we have to shut water off. We used to have to go back to the office, get cards, high cards.
What would the commissioners need them for then?
They use
I mean,
them
I
for-
understand like why the guys in the trucks
Yeah,
and
they
doing
use
the
them at the
work would
meetings and
need
everything
them.
like that, all the, any communication to do with the water department and stuff like that. Meetings, any, as I just said, all this paperwork is all done on a tablet now and stuff.
That seems like an awful lot of money. That causes heartburn. I was confused with the cell phones on why the commissioners would need those. I think I'm dumbfounded on the tablets, to be honest, with a rate increase that both towns just experienced, to then find that there's $1,800 tablets.
Again, from the commissioner's side, there's only 6.
Six
other-
$800 tablets.
The 9 of them are necessary for day-to-day operations.
And as technology evolves, they'll need to be upgraded and replaced if they break and maintained.
Well, we do have insurance policies on them, so that, and I think it's like $5 a month or something like that. You can insure them in case anything happens.
I think the issue less data is about whether they're lost, broken, or stolen. I think the issue is $5,000 coming out of an expense of our water bill is one of those, makes you scratch your head. I don't think we're trying to stymie technology or stymie productivity. I'm certain you can appreciate that.
Oh, I do.
It was one of those, hey, this doesn't seem right when we squabble over a penny here and there, and I just, all intents and purposes, bust your chops about workers' comp and your rating. And
Yeah.
and to see that it could be characterized as a capricious spending of $5,000 for
Mhm.
something that may or may not be needed. It would be no greater than us all getting tablets, so we could have paperless, and as you can appreciate, I think we'd be just as good of a candidate, but I don't know that we would ever say that we're going to do that. So that's from my vantage point. I know that I've talked offline about this point. I was one of those, let's ask him, he's coming in.
Yep.
Do you have a tablet?
Yes,
How come you don't have it?
because I have all this with you guys. The tablet's in my truck right now. I use my tablet for, in particular with, I can control all my wells and all my treatment plants with the tablet for off-site. Anything goes wrong, I can go right on the tablet, find out remotely.
How did you do that before the tablets?
How did I do that before the
Yeah.
tablets? We didn't. You just have to call the plant or get in the plant. I can also, it's a management tool for me. I can see who's in the plant and what's going on and what's not being done. And take my life in my hand with the guys now that I have all this technology, but no, they like it. They appreciate it.
How many commissioners are there? 6?
6,
And how often do they meet?
once a month at a minimum.
So they have to have a tablet because they meet once a month? I don't know.
It's not good news,
Oh, it
but,
isn't?
but it's only 3 tablets for Abington. Rockwood paid for their 3, but it's still the principal of all, it was 6, but
How come this isn't put in an article so the taxpayers in Abington can see it and either reject it or approve it?
it was just part of the operating budget when they went for it.
I don't know.
Did the commissioners ask for it, or was this, I want to understand the decision process.
Yeah, it was suggested that they wanted to look into tablets for meetings. I gotta walk a thin line.
I was gonna say, really appreciate your position right now.
Yeah. Who has the end say in that? That's a commissioner's vote?
If it's voted,
They vote that at
they
the
can
meeting,
overrule
that's
me
not
at
something
anything.
you can, is that something that you can say?
I
Veto,
am-
is it?
No, I cannot. I am under their jurisdiction as far as, I work for the Joint Water
Right.
Works. It's-
And we vote for them.
It wouldn't
so
behoove
they
me
work for
to,
us.
you know,
I-
oppose them in anything. I mean, as far as, it's their, they have a tough job facing the public, but, you know, it's,
John?
Well, I don't really think, I don't personally want to keep putting Dan on the spot. I think the point,
Sure.
point is made. But what it does, for me, is it makes me lend pause to looking at each of the budget line items. Because if there's capacity, there's capacity. If it wasn't anticipated, and it was found in some way, shape, or form, then the question that unfortunately you wind up getting is, where is this sufficient capacity? And the reason why I asked the question about the undesignated fund is because those are years after years where you actually made more money than you anticipated. For me, it should be a ZBA type account. I understand the notion that you want to be able to support the infrastructure, but I believe it's the mother may I since we pay the bill. Which means that you should have, frankly, your undesignated should have a limited amount of cash in there, and you should be coming to these groups from the both towns saying, we'd like to do the following. That's why, I don't, this is just my personal opinion, and it's not necessarily a statement of ideology, just more so what it compels me to.
well, a good example is Rockland. Abington is pretty tight. Rockland, I actually have a $500,000, $500,000 article in there to, I'm looking at a new technology for water main upgrading. It's actually, it's pretty cool. It's coring out the existing main, cast iron mains, then robotically locating all the services and then going in and weaving a fiberglass insert into the main, then robotically going in and open up all the services again. What it usually costs me about $125 a foot. This is gonna be done somewhere in the vicinity of $60 to $70 a foot. So, I have the money in Rockland that I can transfer it out, $500,000, give it a shot, and that's my long-range goals now as we start, you know, just this year turning around, as you can see, there's $130,000 I'm asking for this year that won't be on the books next year.
So you'll just do that in Rockland?
Yes.
The-
And Rockland's paying for the whole thing. I don't have the money right now in Abington to do
Right.
it. But if it's successful, then we'll start looking at expanding the program, going to both towns.
Is that what?
But there's a perfect example where Rockland pays, because it's being done in Rockland, that's being paid 100% by Rockland.
Are you trying to build the undesignated fund for something like that? Is that why there's 450 in there now?
Yeah, it's 450, but I'm just voting to take out
Yeah.
285. So,
I'll wait for Mother Mary. I have to admit, I'm not comfortable with building the undesignated fund. I don't know if that's the appropriate way to say it. Because that to me means that we're gonna, I'm gonna ask for $100, I know I'm only gonna spend 10, so I'll have an extra 90 just to wait for the future. I don't know that I don't agree with that. I agree with the technology, I think it's remarkably cool, and I think it's very creative and innovative to take existing structures and having to rip it out, cause all this disruption, to be able to go through and use that level of technology, and I think that's fantastic. But I'd like the ability to say, hey, I think that's fantastic in front of my neighbors at town hall, at town meeting. I don't think that I should have an exorbitant fund, but again, that's just me. I don't believe in the redistribution of.
I hesitate to get involved in this discussion, but the question for Dan, and I hate to ask questions to catch you off guard, that you didn't come here prepared to answer, but is there a policy of the district as to what percentage of budget or assets that you'd like to get to in terms of a designated fund balance? And the reason that
The answer is no.
no, there isn't a specific policy, okay.
No.
Because I tend to agree with Sean that people don't pay their taxes or pay their assessments and fees, et cetera, so that it can get put in the bank. They do it for service. And that's why it's so prevalent to borrow, for these long-term capital projects. So, again, these, the elected officials make these decisions. It's, and that's what the job is. And I'm not second-guessing any of that. But it is interesting to know whether or not they've ever developed or you ever considered a policy on what level of undesignated you think is appropriate to be at for the purposes to protect yourself against the emergency type of situation.
Well, yeah, the rule of thumb is 10%.
10% of what?
Operating budget,
Of operating.
yeah.
Okay, you don't have a policy. But
We don't have a
that's kind of
policy,
the
but,
rule of
well,
thumb.
that's a industry standard.
I see.
The way the economy's been going and the way we've been staying just about afloat, there isn't the money in the reserve to do that. Plus, you also, we've done a lot, and we've expanded the reservoir, we've built new tanks, we've done infrastructure, Washington Street, Adams Street, we've done a lot of infrastructure, we've done a lot of treatment stuff. 99% of it, you see the tank, that's about the only thing they see. And I, right now, are probably in the vicinity of $6 million in bonds out there, that are 20-year bonds. So, you can only take so much, we have to pay them back.
I was just curious, from a policy standpoint, I'm not, it's not a criticism. I know you're the messenger, but I don't want anyone to think it's just criticism, it's just kind of my own.
See, this here, you can't do any more damage, Rick.
John?
I think using the 10%, I think if we were to ask Rick and Dory the same question back, what percent of our operating budget is typically earmarked to have come back as free cash? And I think that 10% number seems similar. If you look at 10% of your operating budget as a matter of good, I don't know what the DOR asks for. I don't know what the number is. I honestly don't know what the number is. I know the DOR actually has a publication out saying, hey, listen, municipal finances, you should have, this is what we consider a comfortable number. The reason why I mention that is if we use it, whatever the number happens to be, if it's a single-digit number, then I think it's kind of prima facie that when you look at a budget of 3.3, then 10% of that, of the Abington portion, is only $139,000. And if the balance is well over 4, then I think that we have a handful of years of, dare I say, we would have a rate decrease to catch up. But again, that's just my opinion.
Anybody have
There's a
any?
policy right now with the joint waterworks that that money can't be, it has to go into the undesignated fund. What is the policy? How?
Well, that's not a policy, that's a law.
Okay, so
Anything that is not, any money's not approved on town floor, such as, I have a budget approved of $3 million. If I bring in $4 million, I cannot spend more than the $3 million.
right.
The other million goes into the undesignated.
And that's a law that it goes into the undesignated,
Yes.
that it goes into the undesignated fund. And then what restraints do you have, or what is the policy that keeps you from, or parameters, for you to spend that money?
I can't spend anything out of the undesignated without town floor approval.
So you could go to the town of Rockland and say, I want to spend this money for a rate decrease.
No, we don't.
That's what I'm
No,
asking.
no, you don't throw that one in there.
You can or you can't.
No, you wouldn't. First of all, Rockland can only spend Rockland's money.
That's what I'm saying. You have an undesignated fund for Rockland.
Mm-hmm.
You're at Rockland Town Meeting.
Yep.
You,
But I get the articles just like this. And that's the only way.
Could you have an article that says, we have this surplus of money in the undesignated fund, we want to use it for a rate decrease?
I don't know if that would be an article.
Yeah, that would be a decision by the commission, is to use undesignated fund balance as a funding source to reduce rates. That would
But
be-
then, so the money can come out of the undesignated fund then without having an article?
It has in the past, and that's usually done just the way the budgetary articles are voted and worded.
Right, you would have to vote to raise and appropriate from the enterprise fund X and transfer from undesignated fund balance Y to fund the budget. So that's how you would do it at town meeting.
Well, to that end, to Barbara's point, and I appreciate the incredulity you had looked at me with, the DOR says it's between 3% and 5%, and I appreciate that. So 3% and 5% is what they say town should strive for to generate free cash. That's the Department of Revenue, right? But to Barbara's point, we've struggled each year when we come across budget overruns, right? We struggle as to which department we're gonna cut and how we're gonna cut them, and we always look at the funds that we can't touch. And while we can't touch that directly, we may have an indirect measure for which we generate enough acrimony and enough cause of concern to say, geez, this fund balance is $400,000 and it's 8 times higher than what is recommended. That's arbitrary, again, just be using stupid numbers. I wonder if we have an option to kind of push that towards the board, the joint board, and saying, hey, we'd like you folks to take this action, reduce the operating budget on the Abington side by taking money out of the undesignated, and to take the steps that Rick had just outlined.
So that's what I'm asking. That can be done through the commissioners,
Based on what Rick said, so town meeting would vote
through
for-
setting up the budget, which then we at town meeting,
Yes.
that's what you were saying, right,
How you-
Rick?
Yeah, it's how you
So the commissioners would-
designate the funding sources for the budget.
Because the commissioners would come up with the budget, you would come up with the budget, and they would agree that X amount comes out of the undesignated fund in order to cover those costs of a rate decrease. Then that has to go to town meeting through the enterprise fund.
Right, the voted town meeting that appropriates the funds to offset the district budget would have to include raising the.
And appropriating and
appropriating
transferring.
From the enterprise fund and transferring from undesignated fund balance, whatever that amount is that you'd like to reduce, that causes a reduction in rates. So the reduction in rates would be the result of whatever that vote is, as identified by the water commissioners. Like I said, that's obviously a policy decision.
Right, and I was more trying to get
Talk to
at
them
that,
about-
there's, like, the Council on Aging has an account where it's only allowed to be spent on certain things. There's,
Their enterprise account.
right, it can only be spent on certain things. So this is different than that.
Well, not really. This is an enterprise account, a special revenue account, but it's indirectly an enterprise account.
But it's an
With-
undesignated fund that you could,
But basically what an enterprise account does is any monies collected by the special revenue account stays with that special revenue account, and the only way it can be spent is to be voted out at town meeting.
but like, the Strawberry Valley Golf Course, that fund, it had to be spent on green, it could only be spent on like open space, and there was certain parameters. There's not really that
No.
type of, you're not tied so tightly to those
No,
types of.
No.
Okay.
There's a little bit of difference there. This is an operating budget as opposed to a, they're spending on open space that has to be some kind of a conservation purchase, I would think, or something like that. This is an operating budget to produce and deliver water.
Which is separate than a revolving fund or an enterprise account
Right,
or a
and
gift
that's
account.
why I was.
That's what you're getting at,
Right,
yeah,
Because when you had said, I can't spend it on,
right.
you can spend, the commissioners can decide what you spend it on. It's not something that there's those types of parameters, those types of restrictions.
99%, well, I put the budgets together, they go through them. They, they have their comments, we might tweak this and tweak that, but 99% of the work on the budget is done by me, and overseen by myself. You know, it's the day-to-day operations, 99% of it.
No, I was more getting at that fund itself doesn't have those restrictions.
No, no.
All set.
We all set?
I think everybody's all set.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Keep you on your toes, that's all.
Fire extinguisher, right?
Get your tablet.
Thank you.
Ouch, ouch.
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
I know. Bye, Dan.
Good night, Dan.
Jack.
I don't think Jack wants to come up after that.
That seat might be a little hot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay a little bit. If his hair isn't gray when he gets out of here.
I was hoping I could leave and you wouldn't notice.
I have a question before you start.
No,
I
no.
really do.
No,
I'm serious. Why were you guys moving snow today at the school? Just because I know people are going to ask that, Jack.
There's a
Driving by
very
and seeing
large
it.
funeral coming in for Friday.
Okay.
So we were asked, there'll be a large police presence, and we were asked if we could clear out some of that area there. So,
Thank you.
is that all right?
Yep. Just wanted to, I know people are going to ask, so.
I didn't want to
Might as
answer that question, but Officer Barry Garrity's mother died, and he's part of a Metropolitan Law Enforcement Council, which is a very large group, and they plan on coming out for a, so they knew they needed parking, and there was nothing on the street, so we cleared it out. We asked
With this
permission.
weather.
Hopefully it'll be all set.
Jack. Do you know everybody? You met
No,
Matt?
I don't believe. I'm Jack King. How you doing?
Sean
How are
Taylor.
you? How are you?
Stephanie Eastwood.
Hey.
How are you?
How are you?
Chief, how you doing? Good.
Cindy Whiting.
Yeah, how are you? Very well, you? I must apologize ahead of time. I am extremely ill-prepared for this meeting. Mainly my tenure in the job, but others has to do with the snow that we've been going through and trying to get me and the secretary together to go over the budget. There is some changes. We did an initial budget through the KVS system, and at that point, we had asked for a couple of extra guys, not extra guys, but to rebuild the department. And after even talking to Ken and Connell recently, and some of the administrative assistants at the highway, that's not something we'd be looking at. You know, Rick had mentioned that the governor's numbers weren't very good so far for this year, so what I'm looking for is to hopefully keep a level funded budget. And I think we can give you a level service for a level fund.
Right,
You know.
and primarily because there's no collective bargaining increase.
That's one thing. The only place which might be a little tricky is the streetlight account. There's a potential for a 6% increase. That might be able to be absorbed other areas, but that's the only place that I have no control over. Everywhere else, I believe, you know, through working with the guys and stuff like that, I believe we could potentially give level service for level fund. And that's including with the park department also, given their funds. You know what I mean? What we're doing is we're melding both departments into one, and looking at it between the two administrative assistants, there's a very high potential to be able to give the same level of service. Not that there isn't complaints, there's complaints every year, but, and that's also hoping that Chapter 90 comes in at the same, it did not last year. Like last year, they increased it another 100. I'm not talking about that other 100. I'm talking about the initial 300 with some money that's still left over from last year. We should be able to do a number of roadways. We were given 50 grand at town meeting for drainage and sidewalks. With that, I think we can get quite a bit of work done this year.
What are you doing with, how are you handling the whole, like, park and rec, highway, because we had previously a department head in that, and then it kind of got split out into a couple part-time.
I believe at this point, and that'd probably be a better question for Rick, but they were still going to use a part-time rec director, a part-time administrative assistant that handles a lot of the work from the part-time rec director, and myself. So it wouldn't have changed from last year.
Couple of points. First, I just to take a step back and just in fairness to Jack, is that, you know, when this budget was first input into the system, it wasn't even Jack that did it.
Yeah.
So he has had to pick up the pieces from when it's hard when you're not the first person that
Right,
started the process. So just want to make sure you all understand that. So go easy on
I think I'm probably more looking to know what direction we're going in with not just the park and rec and the highway, but a DPW.
Right.
Because that's
The,
something.
The selectmen will be sponsoring an article at town meeting to create a Department of Public Works that consolidates formally the highway department, the park and rec, what is now park and rec, and likely the sewer department. Understanding that the sewer department does have to be kept separate from a cost basis. So that's what you can look forward to. It's not going to alter much the bottom line budget, though. You're going to see, though. It's not going to really impact that very much when push comes to shove.
I'll bore you with my million questions about like water and how you can do that later on, because we've already had enough, I guess, of that tonight, but.
And I would
So
totally agree with my answer.
So basically, it'll stay the same even with that article, financially.
Well, I think that it's a little, it's premature for me to say that right now, because a lot of it would depend on what the administrative result is. Like, for instance, it's been suggested that if you're going to have a Department of Public Works, well, then you want to make sure that you have an engineer in the department. And I don't think that we need to do that. You don't want to write that into a legislative act. I think the goal would be to try to utilize the existing personnel as much as possible to try and save as much operating funds as possible. That would be at least the immediate goal. As you know, we've got a budget crunch, so the time to deal with it, we certainly don't want to be looking to, increase our staffing requirements during a budget crunch. So
That's more my concern, is that this particular department has been cut so severely manpower-wise.
Right.
What the ramifications of combining. I mean, you're already doing the work for both departments, with the same
We're
level
already
of
a year into
staffing.
it, so you shouldn't, other than the DPW, which I'm not really familiar with, but you shouldn't notice a difference from our point of view, highway, park, and vehicle maintenance. Melding the sewer into it, that would be administration. I'm not
yeah.
too familiar with how that'll go, but.
Yeah, I mean, the goal there obviously is, should that be, again, keep in mind the sewer commissioners will have a lot to say about this too. To the extent that you can combine as much administration as possible, that can go a long way. The other issue too probably is carving out, a recreation department, so to speak, separate from a park department, because as Jack said, I mean, they've been the park department, and to the best of my knowledge, people
But
are
very tight,
pleased
though.
with that.
Right?
But
Mowing of fields and that, like, that's,
But a recreation
I'd love help if
piece-
that's what
that's what I'm getting at.
But you have a recreation piece that is, that is essentially, self-funded through user fees that provides,
Right.
that's a different animal than the care and maintenance of the facilities. So that I think is gonna be, where the division comes between what is now a park and rec department. The recreation commission, whose mission would be to facilitate recreation opportunities and programs. So,
I think I was more looking to see if there was any wiggle room as far as, because of that salary, if that gave any potential
What
for,
salary?
any potential for more help, I
I
guess.
understand, you have essentially a six-figure salary plus benefit plan that is now vacant, and is there an opportunity to utilize those savings? Clearly, that will be part of what we're trying to accomplish. How well we can do that, and of course, like I said, the sewer commissioners have a lot to say about it. I mean, this isn't just an operational issue, it's a political issue too. I mean, you have elected officials who've spent their time investing in, their time and energy in a sewer department department and in sewer infrastructure, and to the extent that they feel that there's a way that these can be put together, that's an important, political piece here. And I don't mean that in a bad political, but just in it's a legitimate question. So I know there's models all over the state of DPWs that have enterprise funds, water, sewer, within enterprise funds. Within a larger Department of Public Works. So it wouldn't be anything that hasn't been done. It's just a matter of, is the town prepared to accept that? I don't know. That'll be up to you more than me, I think.
Before we beat him up, I want to compliment him on the job that he has done.
How about we
Since
do that at
taking
the
over.
end? Beat me up first and then
I'll do it now because you're going to take a beating.
Thank you.
But no, you have done an outstanding job
Thank
on
you
the
very
roads and the sidewalks and filling the potholes.
Through the hard work of the guys in the department, though,
Yeah, they have to have a
I'm looking
leader,
away.
you know.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'll make sure they know.
And dealing with the public during another tough winter.
Yes.
It's not easy.
No.
Not easy.
How was the winter going?
That's something,
How much has been spent on it?
I honestly believe that the snow budget is something that should be looked at in the future. Obviously, it's a little late now because it's gone, but
How far gone is it?
I would predict you could potentially be 4 times over the budget, believe it or not. I know we're close to that now, and I'm hoping we have order of salt. The shed's actually empty.
Next
Are
question.
you having it? Yeah, that was, because that's
We've
all
been
over the
pretty-
news.
No,
People
I'm
can't
not
find
stupid. We've been pretty lucky. We ordered prematurely. We actually lent to another town because they ran out, so we've been pretty lucky. We're not out, but we're very, I don't know if you noticed yesterday, we only did mains, intersections, and hills because it was gonna rain, so you're gonna wash it away anyhow, but it was a safety factor. So rather than throw it away, take care of what you have to, and then if the calls come in, we're going out a little later also. We had a few accidents during the snow. The days are running in now, but the last snow we had, we went out a little later than I would have liked. We tried to prevent accidents, and there was a few, so. But we've been, we've been doing good. We've been out 26 times this year, so.
Actually, Jack provided me a written update today, which I will email to the chairman, and he can circulate that to the board. Essentially, more or less what he just said, so just as a refresher. In case you want to continue to look at the bad news. Anytime of day.
Rick started it with good news.
You don't have good news here.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day that, because we do this, when we see snow, we think,
I cringe
ka-ching,
every time I
ka-ching,
see it.
ka-ching.
Remember how beautiful it used to look to you?
Yeah.
Things will start turning.
We've been very conservative, though. I'm sure you've driven in the snow a lot this year, and we're trying to be a little more conservative. Obviously, safety first, but we're not throwing the stuff away. We don't pre-treat roads like a lot of towns do, because I just can't grasp that. Maybe it makes sense to them, but to me, you're throwing the salt away. What if it doesn't snow? What if it rains and it washes away? For the most part, we wait. We've gambled and been very lucky this year, so.
And I will also say, though, if the police and fire chiefs had an issue with that, they coordinate very well. This is not Jack throwing the dice.
No.
This is a coordinated effort on what they think is best in a given situation.
So the budget. How do you guys want to go through this? If it's level funded,
Honestly, if we could level fund it, I'm
so take last year's number and that's what you want this
pretty
year.
confident that, like I said, the only hidden cost, fuel we can do a little something with. I have no control over other departments. But the electricity is something that we're $100,000 in streetlights. I would say, in my opinion, we are right down to bare bones shutting them off. So if the increase is more than a 6%, which is probably around $6,000, but if it's more than that, I don't think I could absorb that.
And the streetlights are a set amount by the utility? They say this, each streetlight
Set-
costs this much?
Yes, yep.
And they haven't indicated,
They indicate there's an increase, but they can't say how much.
okay.
And you're asking them to go 6 months out now for a start, so they won't do that. But that's the only cost that even the electricity on the buildings, we could probably do a little something with, and fuel, gas went up this year, that cost us fuel for the buildings, because we're on natural gas now. That's higher this year than years past, but obviously we're running 3 waste oil burners, but you have to produce the waste. We try not to take it from just anybody, but we have reached out to different gas stations and stuff in town, but they're also burning it too, so that makes a difference. But like I said, shy of the electricity, I think we can give you a level service for a level fund.
Would it be smart to, if we're gonna push anything, push that electricity one up a tad?
I would say, from what I was told, 6% is a good number, so that would be $6,000. But
Yeah, I mean, you'll notice in here too, there's a small increase in snow removal, just as a policy objective. I think we all would like to start incrementally, and I know that was the intent a few years ago, I've been told, but you all know how difficult it is to find monies you're not legally required to find in a given fiscal year. So that's an increase that, on a percentage basis, makes it look a little bit larger, but it's not to do with the operations of the department.
it takes a little more than half of the budget just to buy salt, just to fill the shed, and we've already emptied it twice this year. Granted, this year is a little bit higher than normal, but it's a realistic number, so that's not to put it on the street, that's just to put it in the barn, so.
So your budget was gone just in salt.
This year, well over that.
What would you increase the snow and ice budget to?
It would be tough to say, because there's also the reimbursement factor, but I think somewhere between 250 and 300 is kind of an
More
average
realistic.
number.
The average has been about 400,000
Yeah.
for the last 5
Right.
years. That's been the average. Ironically, well, maybe
We were
it's
just
not
talking
ironic,
about it
maybe-
today.
Maybe this, ironic's not the right word, but that's not out of the question in terms of the path we're probably on right now for this year.
Yes.
So,
And we're at what, 100,000? Is
the
it?
It's
budget
at
is
100.
The
100,000.
budget was 1.
Yeah, I'm asking for a 250 to 300 increase.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so that would, put you right on, more
Yes.
or less on the average.
And that would be a good average, and you don't use it, I mean, so that's not something you just,
It's never not been used.
no, it hasn't.
I think we've
Even on-
surpassed
Won't be
the,
spent on tablets.
No, I wouldn't say no, but phones, not tablets.
This is less actually for you, but more, you're indirectly, this is gonna be more towards Rick. Why do that? So here's the challenge back, right? So the challenge back is gonna be if the budget has $100,000, because you can surplus spend that particular deficit spend out of that particular account. Why do you wanna earmark a portion of your cash that you can use today and not use it at the end of your fiscal year like you're supposed to? Why put in, as an example, we just talked through, right? So when you look at the averages of the averages, so about 400 grand between FY 12, 13, and right now you're trending with 5 months left in your fiscal year and a horrendous amount of snowfall between what you just described with the salt and the actual manpower to move the snow. You're at 277, so you're likely gonna hit 450 to 5. The challenge back is if you took 500 grand and you put it into this FY 14 budget, that would have taken 500 grand from some other department at some other
I
time.
don't disagree. I think that, like I said, is first of all, the trend is one thing, but obviously, as you know, once you get past March, the trend starts to change. So when, I don't like to have $500,000, because that's not what I hope we're looking at. I think it's really a matter of getting fiscal year expenditures into the correct fiscal year. From a absolutely bottom line practical standpoint, you're right, it really doesn't matter, because to the extent that you consider your reserve for next year's recap sheet, in a sense, a budgetary item, you're doing the same thing, and you know exactly how much you spent. On the other hand, again, in principle, getting the appropriate fiscal year expenditures into the fiscal year you're spending it in, it would be nice to achieve that. I don't think it's the town's #1 financial priority, though. And like you said, when you've got, when the difference is between potentially laying off teachers and maintaining the same amount for snow removal, that's not a huge policy decision to make.
Now I'm gonna raise my hand.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
Stretching.
I think it would be better to be a little bit closer to an accurate number. I don't think that we're going to go down, that from any point here forward, that we're going to go, back down to $100,000 being spent in the snow budget. I know that once we set it if we set it this year at 250, then next year we can't go below that. But the problem more arises when we're so tightly budgeted, and then all of a sudden we come in with, okay, well, now we have to find $300,000 to cover that snow budget, which if we had already planned 250,
But I guess
it's a little less money that you're
just
looking
went
for in
through
the
this.
end.
But I guess I disagree, because the whole notion of municipal finance with regards to statement on the recap sheet is that you're using monies that are, you're using tomorrow's paycheck today. You actually get to play a float today. If you budget this cash today, you have to, that stays in it stays in your budget. If it stays in his budget, whether it's gonna be spent or not, it stays in his budget.
Only for that purpose.
Yeah, no, I respect that. I'm not saying that you can use it for any other purpose. My point
You can
here is that
transfer.
we have $1 million, but you have 1.1 worth of expense that you have to worry about between all these departments rather. And someone says to you, hey, listen, that department you can actually underfund because you don't know what you're gonna spend, but you just have to pay it back by next year's cash that you're gonna get back with your fall's recap sheet. You have to get that back, right? So the mechanics of the DOR making these certifications to say, okay, what are you gonna have? The state gives you this unrestricted general aid. They give you all this crap. Before they give you all the crap, they say, what do you owe? Like, take it off that particular top. I don't know that's a flawed financial policy. I really don't.
Well, and I'm not, again, I don't know that there's a right answer to it, but I think that to the extent that over time you can make progress, and I think that, a modest annual adjustment that doesn't have a significant impact on your overall budget process is probably, the right way to go. I don't think, like I said, I don't think you really want to, make this such a priority that you're.
No, I'm just
hurting
saying,
another.
I think
This
it's
is
better
what
to
the
be
town-
closer to the accurate number and not be jockeying for money at the end.
The town has already started this process, what Rick's talking about.
I
We've
agree
been-
with that.
And he's not saying, let's get to 400 grand. He's saying a modest increase, just like they have. It went from 60 to 80 to 100, or maybe 60 right to 100. Now, I was under the impression that on your reimbursements, such as the state or the feds are gonna reimburse, they only reimburse you back to your allocated funds. If it's 100 grand, they go back to that.
Well, actually, any reimbursement through the state,
Yeah,
based upon an emergency funding is, first of all, it's rare.
yes, very
And
rare.
second of all, it's usually based upon a specific snow incident.
Yep,
And it's a
event.
percentage of what the expenses you can document, so.
It's a nightmare to do, but.
It's interesting in some of the biggest,
Mm.
toughest winters we've had in the last couple of
10
years.
grand or
No one's
something,
even
yeah.
discussing at the state level.
That's not where you're going with that money. You're talking about the free cash at the end.
Yeah, no, so I guess
Yeah,
to the point, we're all on the same page with a modest increment.
Mhm.
I am not
Yeah.
on the same page with getting it closer to where it needs to be. And I don't know that I will ever be on the same page with getting it to be equivalent to previous expenditure, which is not, for the reasons that you cited. You're locked, for one. For two, is I would rather actually, at the end of the year, use the cash at the beginning of the year to say, I know I can distribute it across a multitude of departments to benefit it. And to your point, Jack, and to what Rick just described, it does make sense to increment it, but there needs to be a threshold. And if it gets to a certain number, what is that number? I don't know, but I'm just not a fan of saying it needs to be 400 grand, as an example, getting it closer. I would appreciate, sure, if you would ask for that nominal increase in that number to
That's-
get to 125, and we take that step and say, okay, we dip our toes a little bit. And then next year, we say, okay, it makes better sense to say 175, because that's what our central
Yeah,
tendency is.
175.
Yeah, I
That's
think
a-
that's.
That's what you're proposing this year, right? Is a modest
250,
increase.
what's, a little bit. Right.
No, I
only money.
think that
It's not mine.
makes perfect sense to everybody. I don't have any great philosophical issue with it, other than, I do believe you should be trying to expend funds within the fiscal year that you're actually, incurring those costs, but I think in the last 20 years, there's only been 1 year when, in any place I've been, where there was actually snow money left over in the budget after.
It doesn't happen.
Who was
It
that?
just- it was one of those magical years.
Had to be.
Kids were miserable, but paying the bills were very happy, so.
So it's the area working in Florida.
But I would also say, even with the modest amount that's been proposed, the reality is, I think, this board completes its budget deliberations, I think, the first week of March. Probably within a week of that, I will be providing you a budget proposal. And we're all gonna have to go through the same exercise, and, you know, whether or not that 40,000, was it 40? I think is critical to other issues remains to be seen, obviously, so.
Jack, don't you guys typically fill that shed in the summertime when it's, the prices
This
are
year,
low?
actually, the past 3 years, we haven't.
Oh, you haven't, okay.
A lot of times, we'll empty it down for maintenance,
Oh,
and
okay.
then we'll start the next year's budget. If it was a lighter year, and we weren't $300,000 over, we may, but this year, I probably
Oh, I
won't.
mean, when you get your new budget, don't you?
Yeah, probably the fall,
Yeah.
yes, but not right now. We very rarely start a snow budget before like October, just because it's, when they start seeing the bills come in, snow already, you know, it just doesn't
No.
sit well, but yes, usually around October.
It's funny, within the last week or so, I was asked by somebody, it may have been a local reporter, you know, how if we still had any snow money left, and I think I said that we were out of money in July. So
Yeah.
shit, you're out of money.
Yeah, that is the case. But we don't try to empty it, but if it is close to being emptied, we do maintenance inside the shed.
Oh, good.
That shed, I want to say, is 30 years old, so.
Yeah, I know.
One of them's newer, it's probably 20 years old, but, and that's something in the capital plan down the road that it's in there. So,
I think it's been rebuilt once, too.
yeah,
Anybody have any more questions?
I'm satisfied.
so easy. I'm going to come unprepared every time. It was very nice meeting you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
That covers new business. Anything for continued business?
No,
All right.
I have nothing other than to say, like I said, my goal will be, the finance committee's schedule is set, but my goal will be within a week of finishing the process, they have a draft proposal, a House one proposal, so to speak.
Will there be a revision to this document that we're looking at between now and then? Because Jack's come in with a different one, Dan's come in with an increase.
I would say, well, actually, if you want one, I don't know, you know, generally, once you have a budget proposal, the next thing you would see would be a recommendation with certain levels, but again, if for administrative reasons you want to see a revision, a revised document from any particular department, we can be happy with that. So you let me know, whatever you want.
Thank you. Liaison reports? Anyone? Minutes? We do have minutes. I've got some somewhere in this pile. I'll take yours. Should be two. Yeah, there's the other pile here.
Oh, okay.
You guys came prepared.
No, I got them.
Oh, you already took them?
You were not here.
I cheated.
Mine are in this
Even
mess
though I came
somewhere.
in late. Want to make a motion?
Somebody.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February 11th.
Second?
Anybody here for that?
Yeah.
All those in favor? Everyone?
Motion to approve the minutes of February 12th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
I didn't get the mail, I'll get it for tomorrow. Still don't know where it is.
Same time,
It's in there,
same
it's hard to read.
Does anybody have anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, I just let you know that I will not be available tomorrow evening.
Oh. What are you gonna do with Rick?
So,
I might be here.
I might
If
not
it's,
be.
if it's bad,
chasing colleges with my
Rick, did you
youngest
get
son.
my little schedule there?
yes.
Where were
Going
we
on
chasing
vacation,
to?
too.
Where are you going to?
That's why I gave it to you.
Okay.